This is the history of the euphonium in 5 minutes. We all know the euphonium. We all love the euphonium. But if you don't know what a euphonium is, go check out my video, What is a Euphonium? Great, now all of you know what a euphonium is, so let's jump into the video. So, the first version of the euphonium is said to be the serpent. Here's an image of the serpent. The creator is unknown, but we know he's French. The serpent could be made from wood, brass, or sometimes even silver, and was played with a deep cup mouthpiece made of horn or ivory. The serpent is played in bass clef and is part of the cornet family. It usually has 6 finger holes to change the pitch, and was most often as a supporting voice for the tenor and bass in church choirs and military bands. It was a really hard instrument to play, and a few composers who wrote songs for it are Handel, Beethoven, and Wagner. Then, in 1817, the ophicleide was introduced by instrument maker Jean-Hilaire Asté. The ophicleide just looked like a really weird baritone saxophone, and it was created out of brass. And it also had a cupped mouthpiece like the serpent and the euphonium. Here's an image of the ophicleide. Unlike the serpent, it was a solo instrument. Several musicians became famous ophicleide soloists. The most famous, Sam Hughes, Jean-Prosper Guver, and Alfred Fassy, the former two reaching celebrity status with Julien's orchestra. But just like the serpent, the ophicleide was a difficult instrument and really hard to tune. Then, in 1815, the first piston valve was patented by Heinrich Stolzel and Friedrich Blumel. Then, in 1823, William Wieprecht made a piston-valved instrument called a tenor bass horn. And, in 1838, Karl Mortis of Berlin made a similar instrument called a tenor tuba. However, in 1843, that Sommer of Weimar designed and named a piston-valve tenor-voiced instrument called the Euphonium. Its name is derived from the Greek word euphonos, meaning sweet-voiced, and many consider this instrument to be the ancestor of modern-day euphonium. The euphonium and the ophicleide coexisted for at least 5 decades, but the euphonium was easier to play and both cheaper to manufacture in larger quantities. The ophicleide players Hughes, Prosper, and Fassy later switched to the euphonium and earned a good living for themselves. But Sam Hughes ignored the euphonium and died in 1898. Then, during the Industrial Revolution, about 40,000 brass bands in Britain used the euphonium, and about 50 to 60 years since Sommer invented the euphonium, there were approximately 60,000 amateur euphoniumists in Britain. Then, Adolf Sax produced a family of valved brass instruments called sax horns in the 1840s, which also contributed to the demise of the ophicleide and the indeed rise of the euphonium. Sax's B-flat baritone sax horn and the B-flat bass saxophone corresponded to the size and pitch of the euphonium, and were among many of Sax's instruments promoted by the virtuosi distant family. While the euphonium was flourishing in the brass band movement in Britain, it also became really popular in Europe and USA. In 1850, French infantry and cavalry bands were required to have at least 4 bass sax horns and 2 baritone horns. In 1851, the Royal Artillery Staff Band of Woolwich replaced their ophicleide with a euphonium, and in 1870, Japan formed a military band utilizing 2 euphoniums. This trend of including euphoniums in the military band continued until the euphonium occupied a permanent position in military bands worldwide. All around the world, some countries have different or lookalikes of euphonium. Like in Spain, the euphonium lookalike is called a bombardino. The Germans have a Klein bass or a baritone. Italy, a flicoino basso, and France, a sax horn bass or a clarion bass. And for the next 100 or so years, many people perfected the euphonium until we have the great instrument we have today. Some euphonium players today are Brian Bowman, Tyrone Branger, David Childs, Nicholas Child, Michael J. Colburn, Leonard Falcon, Choichiro Hokazono, and Arthur W. Lehman. And that's the history of the euphonium in 5 minutes. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.